Hello, Malma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. First, the Philippine National Police has ordered all police commanders and units to immediately put up checkpoints in barangays and main thoroughfares of the National Capital Region and the provinces of Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, which were reverted to Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ beginning Tuesday. PNP Chief General Archie Gamboa said in a statement, our police units in the field are ready to set up more checkpoints in barangays and main thoroughfares as the NCR, Rizal, Laguna, Cavite, and Bulacan reverted to MECQ from August 4 to 18, heeding the call of our medical frontliners. During the 15-day MECQ, Gamboa said that police frontliners will have stricter checkpoints to effectively contain the spread of the coronavirus. Under the MECQ guidelines, only one person will be authorized to go out to buy the basic needs of a household to avoid non-essential travels. Quarantine pass will be mandatory for authorized persons outside residence and to be presented at the checkpoints. Gamboa urged the public to fully cooperate with the authorities for the sake of public health. The EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement takes effect, and Hanoi is out of rapid tests and tells people to monitor their own symptoms. Eliana Faith Sebastian joins us live. Hello, Eliana.
Hi, Alma.
Hello, Eliana. Yes, go ahead.
Here are the latest updates here in Vietnam. Vietnam fulfills its international commitments as EVFTA takes effect. Vietnam will continue to fulfill its international commitments so that it can take full advantage of the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, or the EVFTA, and recover its economy amid a resurgence of COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at the Forum on Trade Cooperation with EU partners on Friday, Quong Coc Bung, Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade, said the trade deal, which takes effect on August 1, will open up many cooperation opportunities between Vietnam and the EU. He stated that as one of the few countries to maintain positive growth this year, Vietnam will continue to strengthen the business environment and complete the legal framework for trade and investment, ensuring the legal rights of investors in order to take full advantage of this historic trade pact. The government has directed the Ministry of Industry and Trade and Vietnamese trade offices in the EU and the UK to continue to provide Vietnamese enterprises with market information, connect them with foreign partners, and solve any problems as they face penetrating the EU market. Vietnamese exports to the EU last year reached almost 41.5 billion US dollars, and imports from the EU were over 14.9 billion, he said. In the first 5 months of the year, 26 out of 27 EU countries invested in Vietnam, with 2,040 projects worth $21.66 billion, up to $553 million compared to the same period last year, he added. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a negative impact on activity in the first half of 2020, and the recovery is projected to be more gradual than previously forecasted. The period saw Vietnamese exports to the EU market suffer a decline of 8.8% to $16.1 billion due to the pandemic impact. Jean-Jacques Buffet, Vice Chairman of European Commerce of Chamber in Vietnam, or the Eurochem, said the trade deal would boost Vietnam's exports to the EU, one of the largest and most lucrative markets in the world. Experts recommend Vietnam to continue to improve its production capacity and ability to participate in international trade so that it can take full advantage of the EVFTA. Vietnamese exporters should also pay more attention to rules of origin, corporate social responsibility, sustainable development, and environmental protection, in addition to product quality and price. Another update, Alma, Hanoi is out of COVID-19 rapid test kits, and it tells people to monitor their own symptoms. With Hanoi running out of COVID-19 rapid test kits, people, including around 18,000 returning from the COVID-19 hotspot Da Nang, have been advised to monitor themselves for symptoms. The city screened over 88,000 people returning from Da Nang since July 8, performing rapid tests on over 70,000, Nguyen Kak Hin, director of the Department of Health, said on Monday. But the rapid test kits ran out on Monday afternoon, leaving around 18,000 unable to be tested, he said. He then stated that the number of people screened exceeded their expectations and that they recommend that people should monitor their own health, and if one has symptoms like coughing, fever, or breathing difficulty, they must go to medical facilities. The COVID-19 rapid test kits analyze blood droplets to determine if a person is infected with the novel coronavirus, and it typically produces results within 10 minutes. Chairman of the city's People Committee, Nguyen Duc Chung, said that Hanoi had around 100,000 rapid COVID-19 test kits, and 20,000 of them were used earlier this year. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Eliana, for your updates there in Vietnam. Stay safe, stay healthy always.
Stay safe too, Alma. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam. This is Eliana Faye Sebastian. We live in interesting times.
And Malaysia's health ministry said 2 more positive cases were reported today. And let's find out more about the school opening over there in Malaysia. Joining us live is Gail Aldos. Hello, Gail.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Here is the latest news. 2 new cases were reported yesterday, both local transmissions involving Malaysians, said Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah. This brings the cumulative figure of positive cases in Malaysia to 9,001, including 208 active cases with infectivity. He told a media conference there were no imported cases reported infected overseas yesterday. The local transmission cases comprise 1 from the Sivaganga PUI cluster in Kedah and 1 in the Federal Territory of Labuan, detected from a random screening of college students. Elaborating on the Sivaganga PUI cluster, Dr. Nur Hisham said the index case is a restaurant owner who returned to Malaysia from India and failed to observe the home surveillance order. The PUI's non-complaisance had resulted in a major spread of infections in the cluster. So far, 425 people have been screened, and of this, 21 were tested positive, 262 negative, and 42 are still awaiting their results. Dr. Nur Hisham said the infections were also confirmed through the active case detection conducted by the government. However, the District Health Office and State Health Department face challenges in tracing all close contacts because the shop did not use the My Sejahtera app. Dr. Nur Hisham said the case reported yesterday from the cluster, case number 9,000, was a regular customer of the restaurant, but only after participating in Hari Raya Aidilata activities, he admitted to being a close contact of the index case. Following that, RT-PCR was conducted. An individual was confirmed to be COVID-19 positive and has been admitted to Hospital Sultana Bahia for treatment. Dr. Nur Hisham said this case should serve as a lesson to the people to not hide important information like being close contact of COVID-19 patients from the authorities. Those who had a high risk of being exposed to the virus or are close contacts of positive cases had a social responsibility to step forward for screening to help prevent the spread of the disease. He also urged all employers, businesses, and premises owners to register for the My Sejahtera application on the ministry website, saying the use of the app has been made compulsory to facilitate contact tracing for COVID-19 cases. 4 cases were discharged yesterday, bringing the total number of recoveries to 8,668, or 96.3% of the cumulative figure cases. In another news, Alma, school session to start on January 20, 2021. The school reopening date for the first term of the 2021 session nationwide is set for Wednesday, January 20. Senior Minister of Education, Dr. Muhammad Radzi Muhammad Jidin, said that the date was based on the 2021 calendar that had been finalized. He said that the term calendar and school holidays for the year 2021 were prepared taking into account various aspects that were affected by the implementation of the Movement Control Order following the spread of the COVID-19 outbreak. The solution to the challenges that arise during this period requires an unusual approach and method. Same goes for the context of amendments to the school and examination calendars. He said based on the new date, schools will reopen much later than usual. The school calendar for 2020 has been amended by maximizing the duration of school days and reducing the year-end holidays. Radzi said that the reduction in the year-end holiday will allow students to have an adequate face-to-face learning period in preparation for the following year. This because there are weaknesses in the implementation of teaching and learning through home-based learning methods throughout the MCO period. He said that the method was something new among teachers, students, and parents, apart from the fact that many students could not follow online learning due to limited access to communications technology. He said if this situation continues, students will have difficulty in achieving the minimum level of mastery in each subject they take, affecting the students' interest and motivation to continue learning. Radzi said the ministry has thoroughly conducted research for the medium and long term to ensure that students at least achieve the minimum level of mastery in each of their subjects. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Gail Aldos. Thank you, EBC Kuala Lumpur Bureau.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Gail Aldos. We live in interesting times.
To Cambodia now, where a province is dealing with a Chikungunya outbreak. Joining us live from Cambodia is Meldy Mahinay. Hello, Meldy. Kumusta po?
Hello po, Alma.
Hi, Meldy.
Can you hear me po?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead po.
Good afternoon po. Good afternoon po to all and our televiewers. Here is the latest update po. Chikungunya has spread to 12 provinces across the kingdom, with over 1,000 patients testing positive for the vector-borne disease between July 19 and 31, the Ministry of Health announced on Saturday. Of the 1,020 cases, of which 562 were women, over 80% occurred in Siem Reap, Bantay Menchay, Kampong Cham, and Phrae Benhir provinces. According to the data, the National Center for Malaria Control, Parasitology, and Botany, a small number of cases were also reported in Odar Menchay, Tubong Kumun, Takyo, Kampot, Kampong Som, Pursat, Istong Tren, and Pailin provinces, the center said. The Health Ministry reported the provinces with the highest cases of chikungunya was Siem Reap, with over 407 cases, followed by Bantay Menchay with 211 and Kampong Cham with 132. Health Minister Mambung Hen said the measures to prevent the spread of chikungunya are similar to preventing dengue fever. You must avoid getting bitten by a female mosquito carrying the virus by removing all mosquito breeding grounds. Use repellent and hang mosquito nets where you sleep, he said. Bunheng urged anyone that has temperature above 37.5 degrees Celsius to go to the nearest public hospital instead of trying to self-medicate. Provincial Department of Health Director Cross Sarat said, yesterday, Siem Reap is witnessing its first outbreak of the virus in the province, usually treated by dengue. Baon Sarin, chairman of the dengue fever program, and the Siem Reap Provincial Health Department said, in response, he carried out mosquito killing campaigns in Siem Reap City, as well as Prasat Bakong and Chikreng district. Chikungunya is a viral disease transmitted to human by infected mosquitoes. They usually bite during early morning and the late afternoon, and they are typically found in and around urban and suburban dwellings. Some mosquitoes that transmit chikungunya in Africa also live in a forested area. Monkeys and other wild animals are also believed to be reservoirs or carriers of the virus. Travelers going to Caribbean, Central America, South America, Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Indian subcontinent are at risk, especially during the rainy season. Isolated cases of locally acquired chikungunya have occurred in the USA, Italy, and France. In some cases, chikungunya asymptomatic persons do not exhibit symptoms. Those with symptoms usually get ill 3 to 12 days after being bitten by an infected mosquitoes. Symptoms include sudden fever and severe muscle and joint pain. They can be accompanied by headache, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, and a rash. Although most patients fully recovered, chronic joint pain may last for several weeks or months. Chikungunya is rarely fatal. Treatment includes supportive care of symptoms. There is no antiviral treatment available. If you have a chikungunya in the past, you are immune to subsequent infection. Chikungunya virus can be misdiagnosed for Zika or dengue. Travelers should take meticulous measures to prevent mosquito bites during the daytime. Use a repellent containing 20 to 30% DEET or 20% picaridin on exposed skin. Reapply according to manufacturer's direction. Wear natural colored, beige, light gray clothing if possible. Wear long sleeve and breathable garments. Get rid of water containers around dwellings and ensure that door and window screens are worked properly. Apply sunscreen first, followed by the repellent, preferably 20 minutes later. More details on insect bite prevention. There is no preventive medication or vaccine against chikungunya. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much. So the safety measures are just the same, like how you can avoid a dengue bite, right?
Yes, Alma.
Yes. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Alma. I already mentioned.
You take care, and we look forward to hearing more news
Yes.
from you. Thank you, Meldy.
Yes, Alma. Take care also and stay safe. Reporting live from Chom Chau, Cambodia. This is Meldy Mainay. We live in interesting times.
All right, thank you, Meldy. And now Vietnam's largest firm, Vingroup, is ramping up production of thousands of ventilators for the fight against COVID-19 as this pandemic rebounded in the Southeast Asian country. Now, the conglomerate owned by Vietnam's richest man, Pham Nhat Vuong, is better known in the country for producing Vietnamese-made smartphones and cars. Now, it began producing ventilators in late March with 70% of the components produced domestically. It has also announced the donation of 2,600 ventilators to Russia, Ukraine, and Singapore to help treat COVID-19 patients in those countries. Vietnam recorded no local COVID-19 cases for 99 days until July 25, when the country confirmed its first community transmission case in Da Nang. The country has recorded more than 200 cases since then, with at least 7 deaths now. Now, Vingroup has delivered 1,000 ventilators to Da Nang. Meanwhile, bars and pubs in Hanoi's Old Quarter began to shut at 12 a.m. on Saturday after city authorities ordered them to close to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Now, Vietnam confirmed its 7th coronavirus death. According to the health ministry, the 62-year-old woman died from COVID-19 and kidney failure. The patient was being treated at Da Nang Hospital July 18 to the 27th and tested positive for the coronavirus on July 26 before being transferred to a hospital in Hue City. Now, or Hue City. Vietnam has had 652 coronavirus infections, including 271 cases under treatment, 7 deaths. The communist nation was applauded earlier this year for controlling COVID-19 with strict restrictions on movement, extensive quarantine measures, and a robust track and trace regime. But however, an outbreak over the weekend in the beach resort of Da Nang near Hoi Nan has put the country back on high alert. Now, the World Health Organization said it had completed the groundwork in China to probe the origins of the new coronavirus, as it warned there might never be a silver bullet for COVID-19. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus urged governments and citizens to focus on known basic steps to suppress the pandemic. Let's listen in.
A number of vaccines are now in phase 3 clinical trials, and we all hope to have a number of effective vaccines that can help prevent people from infection. However, there is no silver bullet at the moment, and there might never be. For now, stopping outbreaks comes down to the basics of public health and disease control. testing, isolating, and treating patients, and tracing and quarantining their contacts. Do it all. Inform, empower, and listen to communities. Do it all.
Infections are surging in some countries around the world, but Dr. Tedros insisted that, however bad the news or the situation was, past examples such as South Korea showed it could be turned around. Now, the novel coronavirus has killed nearly 690,000 people and infected at least 18.1 million since the outbreak emerged in Wuhan in China last December, according to a tally from official sources compiled by AFP. Now, the WHO began pressing China in early May to invite in its experts to help investigate the animal origins of COVID-19. The UN Health Agency sent an epidemiologist and an animal health specialist to Beijing on July 10 to lay the groundwork for a probe aimed at identifying how the virus entered the human species. Let's take a look.
The WHO advanced team that traveled to China has now concluded their mission to lay the groundwork for further joint efforts to identify the virus origins. As a result of these efforts, WHO and Chinese experts have drafted the terms of reference for the studies and program of work for an international team led by WHO. The international team will include leading scientists and researchers from China and around the world. Epidemiological studies will begin in Wuhan to identify the potential source of infection of the early cases.
It's like needles in a haystack. You can sample every animal in China and outside, and you might have no luck because you're guessing. The real trick is to go to the human clusters that occurred first, and then to work your way back systematically, looking for that first signal at which the animal-human species barrier was crossed. Once you understand where the barrier was breached, then you move into the studies in a more systematic way on the animal side, and then you're directed and much more precise in how you achieve that.
What we understand from many of these studies, these are estimates of the IFR, the infection fatality ratio, is that the estimates hover around less than 1% of 0.6%. And there are a couple of studies that are out that have estimated this 0.6%. That may not sound like a lot, but it is quite high. If you think about a virus that can transmit readily, that can transmit well and infect, and we still, there's a long way to go with this pandemic, 0.6% is quite high. And so we need to do everything that we can, not only to save lives among the cases that we know about, but to prevent as many infections as possible.
And when we talk about death and fatality, that is the outcome of an infection. And an infection is an outcome of an exposure. If people are not exposed to the virus, they cannot be infected. If they're not infected, they cannot infect anyone else, and they don't die. So we need to push back to the concept of exposure. Everybody on this planet needs to do whatever they can to avoid exposing themselves or exposing others.
ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back. Okay, we're joined live by Faye Barte from our EBC Bureau in Bangkok. Hello, Faye.
Good afternoon, Alma, and good afternoon
afternoon
to all the people who are watching us today. So here are the updates here in Bangkok, Thailand. According to the Tourism Authority of Thailand, Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand has issued the notification on conditions for aircraft permission to enter Thailand, effective from August 4, 2020. The commercial flights for tourists are still not allowed. The CCAT's list of 11 groups of Thai and non-Thai nationals permitted to enter Thailand remains in effect, but the adjustment has been made to groups number like 7, 8, and 11. So for non-Thai nationals who are a spouse, parents, or children of a Thai national, they can enter here in the kingdom. Non-Thai nationals who hold a valid certificate of permanent residency, non-Thai nationals who have a work permit or have been granted permission from government agencies to work here in the kingdom, non-Thai nationals who are students of educational institutions approved by Thai authorities, non-Thai nationals who are in need of medical treatment here in Thailand, non-Thai nationals who are permitted to enter the kingdom under a special arrangement with a foreign country or have been granted permission by the Prime Minister. Back to you, Alma.
Right, thank you very much, Faye. How is Bangkok looking right now? Are things...
The general...
Yeah, go ahead.
The general situation here in Bangkok, it's like a usual Bangkok. When you say Bangkok, it has lots of traffic,
yes,
lots of people at the roadside. There are flea markets. However, strict measurements or the healthy precautions, they are still practicing at the moment, like wearing a face mask, alcohol gel everywhere, all over the place is seen.
And what about work? Is work from home still utilized, or is everybody going to work now, or is it half-half?
Alma, according to some interviews that we gathered, some companies are implementing work from home. However, majorities of the companies here, or like schools, they do not practice the work from home anymore. Okay. It's more of like a physical work, like the employee will go to the company and then they are going to perform their work there in the company. Okay. However, strict measurements are still followed.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. You stay safe, Faye, and thank you for joining us today.
Yes, likewise, Alma. You stay safe there in the Philippines. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand Bureau, this is Faye Barte, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Faye. Now, aside from returning some areas under modified enhanced community quarantine, Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said that the President also approved the recommendation to hire additional healthcare workers. Now, healthcare workers will also be given additional benefits, such as risk allowance for those in private sector who care for patients with COVID-19, only 10 to 15,000 for every healthcare worker who will get sick, life insurance, free accommodation, free transportation, and free and frequent testing. Let's listen in.
Nabanggit din po kahapon ng ating Presidente bilang pangalawa ang pagkuha ng additional health workers para mag-augment ng current workforce. Kasama na rito ang pagkuha ng 10,000 medical professionals at ang pagtawag sa active duty ng mga reservists. Manggagaling po itong mga medical professionals nito sa mga karatig probinsya na mababa po ang kaso ng COVID-19. Pangatlo, ang pagbibigay ng karagdagang benepisyo tulad ng risk allowance para sa healthcare workers na nasa pribadong sektor na nangangalaga ng mga pasyenteng may COVID-19. Ang sabi po ng Presidente, hanggang 15,000 sa bawat healthcare worker na magkakasakit, magkakaroon din po sila ng libreng life insurance, libreng tirahan, libreng sakay at libre at madalas na pagtetest. Next slide, please. Puntahan naman po natin ang libreng transportasyon sa ating mga health workers. No? Tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang DOTR sa kanilang programang free rides for healthcare workers and medical frontliners. At makikita ngayon po sa live online ang actual lokasyon ng mga bumabiyahing buses ng DOTR Free Ride for Health Workers program sa NCR Greater Manila area.
Okay, let's first head on to Australia. Well, Melbourne is in a strict lockdown again with strict curfews in place as well. To give us an update, joining us live from Melbourne is Dwight Baloloy. Hello, Dwight.
How are you there in the Philippines?
Hi, Dwight. Good to see you. I'm good. We're in a lockdown as well. Yes.
Yes. Same here. Melbourne, Victoria was placed under stage 4 restrictions from August 2, 6 p.m. after a series of consecutive spikes on COVID-19 cases in the past weeks. As per Department of Health and Human Services, Victorian State Government, the current restrictions for metropolitan Melbourne are the following. People can only shop for necessary goods and services. You can only travel up to 5 kilometers from your home. You should stay as close to your home as possible. For example, shopping at the nearest supermarket, only one person per household can leave home to get necessary goods and services for only once a day. This means you can't do multiple shopping trips in a day. Exercise, you can leave home to exercise, but there are limits. You must not travel more than 5 kilometers from where you live to exercise. You can exercise with one other person you live with or a friend or a family member as long as neither of you travel more than 5 kilometers from your home. Limit of exercise to once a day and for only 1 hour. If you are a parent or guardian who is caring for a young child or someone who cannot be left unattended, then they may accompany you. For Victorian businesses to remain open are supermarkets, grocery shops like butchers, bakers, greengrocers, bottle shops, convenience store, petrol station, pharmacies, and post offices. Cafes and restaurants can serve takeaway and delivery only. Support services like food banks are still open. Businesses that are closing will need to shut down by 11:59 p.m. Wednesday, August 5, which are hairdressing, any professional or administrative office services, call centers, and wholesale trade manufacturing. Retail are open for click and collect and delivery only. Hardware, building, and garden stores are open to tradespeople only. Otherwise, it's also click and collect and delivery only. Property and real estate with online inspections and auctions are permitted. Businesses with restricted operations include food production and meat processing, warehousing, distribution centers and cold storage, and also construction businesses. They will need to limit on the amount of workers on site at any time. All open businesses and services are given until 11:59 p.m. Friday, August 7, to submit their COVID-safe plan.
Okay, so Dwight, Melbourne imposed also strict curfews. Can you run that down to me again? And what about school?
Yes.
Can you tell me? Can you
Alma.
update me on that?
Yes, Alma. We just endured our second night of curfew, which happened last Sunday, which will run from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. for 6 weeks. So the only valid reasons for leaving home during these hours are work, medical care or caregiving. And while the widespread restrictions have alarmed many, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews stressed out that essential services like supermarkets, petrol stations, and banks would remain open and urged people not to panic buy. And yes, Alma, with school, remote education is also set to resume from Wednesday. So that will take about 1 million students and teachers out of the city's public transport system, which will less the burden for our public transport system.
All right. Thank you very much, Dwight. Just like here, we're on the lockdown. You stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to hearing more updates from Melbourne. Thank you.
Yeah, stay safe there, Alma. Reporting from Melbourne, Australia, this is Dwight Baloloy. We live in interesting times.
Now, Cambodian police have arrested a prominent union leader for alleged incitement over long-running border demarcation issues with Vietnam. Now, the latest crackdown against opposition voices in the kingdom. Earlier this month, Rong Chun, the outspoken leader of the Cambodian Confederation of Unions, released a statement accusing the government of irregularities at Cambodia's eastern border, which he said caused locals to lose their farmland. Opposition leaders have long accused strongman Premier Hun Sen of ceding territory to Vietnam, harnessing the unresolved border issues between the two countries to whip up nationalist sentiment against his administration. Chun was arrested late Friday for his border comments, according to National Police spokesman Chai Kim Cohen. A court had issued a warrant for Chun for issuing untrue information that harms social security, according to Cohen. Now, Chun faces up to 2 years in prison if found guilty of incitement. Now, since the July 2018 election, where Hun Sen's party won every parliamentary seat in a vote without a credible opposition, authorities have stepped up arrests of former opposition party members, human rights defenders, and dissenting voices. Hun Sen is one of the world's longest-serving leaders, maintaining a 35-year grip on power with methods that critics say include jailing political opponents and activists. And he also rose to power during Vietnam's 1979-89 occupation of Cambodia after Hanoi invaded to oust the Khmer Rouge regime. In other news, a British woman was jailed for 3.5 years after tearfully admitting she stabbed her husband to death during a fight on the Malaysian holiday island of Langkawi. Now, Samantha Jones killed John William Jones in 2018 in their house during a row in the early hours of the morning, which her lawyer said came after years of domestic abuse. In mitigation, her lawyer, Sanggit Kawurdeo, said Jones had long suffered from physical and emotional abuse meted out by her husband, who was an alcoholic and had a fierce temper. Let's listen in.
After listening to both parties, the court handed down its decision and has sentenced Samantha to 3.5 years, specifically 42 months from date of arrest and a 10,000 ringgit fine. She did not intend for this to happen. And now people have heard that, and I think there's a sense of relief on her part. She's accepted the fact that she needs to serve this sentence. And I think that she acknowledges the fact that, you know, her life is lost. And I think she's looking forward to her own recovery. Actually, I'm trying to get some clarity from the prisons on when her release date might be. But it could be in the middle of next year, according to our calculations, but that's subject to the prison's clarification on that. Not really middle, maybe towards the end of next year. I can't give you a...
The 52-year-old admitted culpable homicide, which is roughly equivalent to manslaughter, and was handed the jail term and ordered to pay a fine of 10,000 ringgit or $2,300. She had initially been charged with murder, which carries a mandatory death sentence in Malaysia. But prosecutors agreed to the lesser charge. During a hearing in the northern city of Alor Setar, Jones pleaded guilty and then wept as a prosecutor showed the High Court the murder weapon and photos of the crime scene. The fight began on October 18, 2018, after Jones' husband kicked her when she was lying in bed in the early hours of the morning, according to her lawyer. Now, Jones fled to the kitchen, but he followed and a fight began, and during which she stabbed him with a knife. She inflicted a 15-centimeter or 6-inch wound in the liver of the 63-year-old victim, who was under the influence of alcohol at the time, according to prosecutors. An ambulance arrived after 45 minutes, but it was too late. Now let's go back to Australia. A Sydney health expert discusses the impact of the pandemic on mental health. Regina Harige joins us or reports from Sydney.
As COVID-19 continuously rising across the world, each country has imposed strict guidelines and protocols to control the spread of the virus. In the Southern Hemisphere, particularly here in Australia, the federal and the state governments are managing this crisis with the best that they can do since the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a global pandemic. The public still encouraged to be vigilant and practice social distancing and to follow the government's health advice. However, Statewide differences has been observed across Australia as state of Victoria battles the increasing cases, making it the epicenter of COVID-19 spread in Australia in the last week. With this stricter travel implementation, it is anticipated that already negative impact of this crisis on people will be even more aggravated, particularly everyone's well-being. To help us understand more on how COVID-19 impacts on one's well-being and give us some strategies to manage this impact, we have here Dr. Jed Montaire, who is a health researcher and is currently doing some research on this issue. Dr. Jed, what do you think is the impact of these increasing cases of COVID-19 in Victoria to people's mental health well-being now that people from New South Wales have started to enjoy outdoor activities after lifting several restrictions?
Well, it would vary depending on people's individual circumstance. However, the greater impact could be observed among people who are already been feeling isolated in the last few months and have anticipated that they can be more social and be more mobile this time. But with the travel restrictions and even the borders closing, families, loved ones who are located in different states may have to wait until the restrictions are over in order for them to see each other again. That in itself could add additional, well, it's more stress to people, and especially it affects the mental and health and well-being. And there has been people who've been anticipating these restrictions to be lifted, and they might want to rejoin families in terms of going to another state for weddings, birthdays, and all of those activities. But unfortunately, because of the borders closed, then they have to wait and postpone those events. That can add stress and may impact on people's mental health.
What are your advice for people who are more at risk of experiencing the extreme impact of these recent changes?
Well, my take on this is to follow the government's health advice. But for those people who are really feeling isolated and who are wanting to be reunited with their families, who are currently in different states, it is best to use the existing technology in order to connect with their families. And also, in order for us to improve our mental health and our well-being, it is good to utilize the local resources, maybe as simple as walking in the park or having some exercise. That will really improve our mental health.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
That is all from me with the latest news from Sydney, Australia. Regina Haurige, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Regina. Now, wearing robes, waving wands, and casting spells. Let's go back to Thailand, where youths take to the streets for a Harry Potter-themed protest against the military-aligned government of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, who took power during the 2014 coup and was elected last year. During the disputed general elections, protesters brandished placards condemning you-know-who, quote, a reference to the wizarding Saga's main villain, but also a veiled attack that could potentially be aimed at either the government or King Rama X, unpopular with the young generation. Let's take a look.
อย่างน้อยๆวรรณกรรมแฮร์รี่พอตเตอร์ค่ะก็เป็นวรรณกรรมที่มีชื่อเสียงแล้วก็มีความนิยมมากในประเทศไทยแล้วก็ในโลกนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นหนูเลยมองว่าเราอาจจะดึงดูดแฟนๆแฮร์รี่พอตเตอร์ให้กลับมาสนใจในเรื่องประชาธิปไตยได้อีก
Growing concern over health standards in esports has prompted a new federation to pledge to address the problem as players fall victim to conditions ranging from wrist injuries to obesity, stress, and diabetes. Now, Mr. Chris Chan, president of the Global Esports Federation, a new body backed by Chinese gaming giant Tencent, said credibility was a problem with health and well-being is one area that needs attention. Mr. Chan said the Singapore-headquartered federation, which launched in December and has a focus on holistic health, has already set up an education culture and wellness commission to guide its work. Let's listen in.
Basically, we're all pulling in different directions now. I think people are happy doing what they are doing because there's big money involved. Nobody's addressing the diversity, the inclusivity, the fair play, the health, you know. So these are things that we're trying to, I think, very essential for, especially for people like us from the Olympic movement. I've been long in it, so I know these are the areas that, you know, ultimately we have to address. You know, I think at the end of it all, there must be some rules and some compliancy. You know, I mean, in the Olympic movement, we're concerned about doping. We're concerned about competition manipulation. That's one of the biggest cry word now, you know. So I think it's about time that in the esports, you know, we look into all this. Like in the IOC, they drive very strongly on certain things, you know, anti-doping, competition manipulation, you know. So these are things we hope we can address, you know. And we have already got the commission going, and we've got some very prominent doctors who are sitting inside and sharing with us, you know.
Of top Chinese player Jian Zihao, better known by his gaming handle Uzi, sent tremors through the booming sport, whose revenues are predicted to reach $1.1 billion this year, according to industry analyst firm New Zoo. Now, the 23-year-old, hailed as an icon of the League of Legends game, stepped away from esports in June because he said he had chronic stress, obesity, irregular diet, he stayed up late, and other reasons, and this had given him type 2 diabetes. He also had a hand injury. However, Uzi's case is far from isolated in a sport where professional players can perform up to 500 moves a minute, according to the American Osteopathic Association, and train for hours a day. A report published by the association last year said esports' sedentary nature meant musculoskeletal injuries of the neck, back, and upper extremities were likely for athletes, also flagging concerns over gaming addiction and social behavior disorders. Alarming warnings are nothing new for esports, which has met with a mixed welcome from the sporting establishment despite its wildfire popularity, as witnessed by the hundreds of millions who follow big tournaments online. Attempts to join the Olympics have so far faltered for reasons including a lack of cohesion between competing companies, the changing nature of games, and basic questions over whether gaming can be considered a sport. And finally, in our news, the Iglesia ni Cristo's Aid to Humanity in Vietnam helps Filipinos and foreign teachers affected by the pandemic. Reporting from Vietnam, here's Randolph Wolf Empire.
Lingap sa mamamayan, the Iglesia ni Cristo's local and international outreach program, which provides free livelihood assistance to needy communities, held Aid to Humanity activity in Hanoi, Vietnam. Brother Leander Lacap, the resident evangelical worker, said the event was part of church continuing mission to positively and concretely affect the lives of people and raise human dignity in depressed and needy areas all over the world. The latest Aid to Humanity drive last March 9, 2020 was conducted after the church learned that many Filipino and other foreign teachers who are living in Hanoi have become jobless due to the COVID-19 crisis. These teachers have been jobless since schools and language centers were closed for 3 months. Joan Omega, one of the 27 teachers who attended the said event and a recipient of the outreach program, expressed her gratitude to INC. She stated in a statement that the relief goods she received is such a big help for her survival in Hanoi during the crisis. She was heavily affected by the school's closure for 3 months due to COVID-19 from February to May. The outreach program was attended by both member and non-INC member who recently were affected by the schools or company's closure due to COVID-19. Prior to distribution of goodwill bags, attendees witnessed a 30-minute INC introduction video focusing on the homegrown Filipino church, many outreach projects throughout the world. Clips included, among many others, images of eco-farming and community settlement projects in Africa and the Philippines. This has been Ralph Wandolf Empire bringing you the latest updates here in Vietnam. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ralph Wandolf Empire. All right, from our EVC Vietnam Bureau. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations and beyond. Stay updated about the region of Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.